Hi, Jamie Cowen here to talk to you today about the deep state and other conspiracy theories. What is the deep state? It's the idea that there is a cabal of people in the government in conjunction with the mainstream media, academicians, and scientists to promote an international agenda to rule the world, undermine the U.S. Constitution, and to especially thwart President Trump's plans to drain the swamp. This is a classic conspiracy theory. I want to share a little bit of my background. As I've said previously, I've worked in Congress for 9 years during the Carter-Reagan presidencies. The last several years, I served as chief counsel for a U.S. Senate subcommittee that in part oversaw the civil service. The civil service is a meritorious-based personnel system that was established in the late 19th century to ensure the federal government was not filled with political patrons who would grant government favors to family, friends, and political parties. It has served both Republican and Democratic administrations well for over 130 years. Civil servants are prohibited by law from being active in political parties and political campaigns. However, every administration wants loyal party members to staff government agencies to promote the policies and agenda of the administration in power. Thus, there are a slew of government positions filled by each administration to run government agencies, beginning with secretaries of departments to heads of government agencies to numerous policy positions throughout the government. Some of these positions must be confirmed by the Senate, but many are not. One of the first things that a new administration does when coming to power is to remove the existing political appointees in the government and fill them with their own personnel. For example, the Obama administration did this when it entered office in 2009 by removing Bush personnel, and the Trump administration did the same in 2017 when it removed Obama personnel. This is normal. Obviously, the system itself creates tensions, especially if there are wide policy swings between administrations. For example, during the Obama administration, the Environmental Protection Agency issued numerous regulations limiting emissions from factories, cars, and oil and gas fields. The drafting and enforcement of these regulations fell on civil servants. When the Trump administration came into office and repealed many of these regulations, likely the same civil servants were tasked to rewrite the regulations. Since most people are invested in the work that they do, being asked to perform contrary tasks can be challenging. But civil servants must follow legal directives by their superiors or they will be removed. It's not easy being these people, especially at the highest levels of government. In the past, I knew and worked with many of them. I can say categorically that there is no such thing as a deep state. Do civil servants have political views? Of course. Are there a few bad apples who dislike and try to thwart an administration currently in power? Sure. But if they try to undermine a legal policy directive, they can and will be removed. Sadly, the deep state theory has become increasingly popularized along with other conspiracy theories. The saddest part is that followers of Yeshua are often the ones propagating these dangerous theories. Why? I think in part it's connected to popular theologies about the end times. I grew up with the popular book by Hal Lindsey titled The Late Great Planet Earth, where he outlined current events and showed how they portended the return of Jesus. Some of the critical current events that he highlighted were a reconstituted Roman Empire, aka European Common Market, eventually to be ruled by one known as the Antichrist. The Antichrist and his minions would attempt to rule the world, persecute believers until suddenly God removes them from the earth, the rapture, resulting in the world duking it out in the valley of Armageddon in Israel until Jesus returns. By the way, we currently live in the valley of Armageddon, the Jezreel Valley, and we're happy to rent out rooms for the final battle. Anyway, I believe that the concept of the rise of the Antichrist to take over the world fuels conspiracy theories among believers. Look, I believe what the Bible says. I believe that Yeshua will return to the earth one day. I also believe that an Antichrist figure will arise. But I'm not so sure why believers then become suspicious of globalization or science or experts or the media as if the Antichrist is behind these things. It's not like being an anti-globalist will prevent the rise of the Antichrist. And it's not like being a nationalist draws one closer to God. Sadly, conspiracy theories filled with warnings of the coming of the Antichrist have led to terrible persecutions of Jews for almost 2 millennia. Often these theories argue that since Jesus the Messiah was Jewish, then as a counterfeit, the anti-Messiah or Antichrist must also be Jewish. Since according to traditional Christian theology, the Jews killed Christ, the view is that the Jews also will be behind the rise of the Antichrist. Now this has continued to the modern era. I remember in the early 1970s, I was attending a church in the Washington, D.C. area. One of the elders was a so-called expert on end times prophecy. He talked of shadowy organizations like the Illuminati ruling the world, backed by the Rothschild family, as usual, a very wealthy Jewish family, often accused of attempting to control the world order. This elder also believed that Henry Kissinger was the Antichrist, a Jew, of course, and showed how the number 666 was actually derived from his name. Now, it made it a little challenging for me because when I was on summer breaks from college during this period, I worked in the State Department, and guess who was my boss? Henry Kissinger. I want to make it clear that this elder was not an anti-Semite, but he was propagating beliefs that had anti-Semitic roots. Now fast forward to today. Who is the bogeyman accused of being behind Antifa and other shadowy radical organizations? George Soros, another Jew, originally from Budapest, Hungary. In the late 1990s, I was invited to teach at a Messianic Jewish Bible school in Budapest, Hungary. Budapest was quite a beautiful city, seeking to shed its recent communist past. While there, I learned and met people attending the Central European University started and funded by George Soros. The university was helping to educate Hungarians and other Central and Eastern Europeans to learn about liberal democracies, helping to liberate them from their communist past. In 2010, Hungary elected Viktor Orban as prime minister, a strong nationalist who interestingly attended Central University, European University, as a young man. Since that time, Orban increasingly has undermined Hungary's democratic institutions. In more recent years, he accused George Soros of undermining the nation and supporting radical causes through the Central European University, which was then forced to move to Austria. Most of the conspiracy theories about Soros today originated with Orban. Do you see the parallels? Nationalistic strongmen, using conspiracy theories to ignite the masses. The conspiracy theories always involve Jews. If there are real conspiracy theories, it's the rise of the conspiracy theorists who seek to undermine democratic principles. And guess who often are used by the strongmen to do their bidding in propagating the conspiracy theories? Followers of Yeshua the Messiah. Donald Trump himself is a conspiracy theorist who accused former President Obama of being a non-American, pushing the conspiracy theory of the deep state into the mainstream, fueling the idea that China was deliberately behind the COVID pandemic, calling the mainstream media fake news, claiming immigrants from Mexico were full of murderers and rapists, all the while standing up for so-called Christian values. Do you see where this is going? Once conspiracies take on a life of their own, they become increasingly dangerous, and their perpetrators are dangerous. Believe it or not, Yeshua warned us about this. This is what he says, quote, "At that time, if anyone says to you, 'Look, here is the Messiah,' or 'There he is,' do not believe it." See, that's a conspiracy theory. But continuing with his thoughts, For false messiahs and false prophets will appear and perform great signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. See, I have told you ahead of time. So if anyone tells you, there he is, out in the wilderness, do not go out. Or here he is in the inner rooms, do not believe it. For as the lightning that comes from the east is visible even in the west, so will be the coming of the Son of Man. Then will appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven, and then all the peoples of the earth will mourn when they see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. In other words, all these theories, plans, and preparations are pretty useless. Yeshua is coming anyway, and everyone will see him. What's worse is conspiracy theories demonize others. This is what happened to Jews in the past, and it can easily happen again. As followers of Yeshua, we should be the first to reject these crazy and demonically inspired conspiracy theories that lead to suspicion, division, and hatred. How about us doing what Yeshua actually commanded? Love the other as yourself. Thank you, and see you next time.